Welcome to the Anxious Love Coach podcast, a place for creating meaningful, conscious, secure, long-term partnerships. Here, we talk relationship anxiety and creating healthy, magnetic dynamics within partnership to help you feel confident and alive within committed partnership. My name is Natalie Kennedy, and I'm your host. I'm a relationship anxiety coach and meditation teacher. I've worked with hundreds of clients battling anxiety, and after experiencing extraordinary shifts in my own healing relative to partnership, now combine my lived personal experience and professional training to help others trust themselves within relationship and in their lives. I've been to the edge and back with my now husband from relationship anxiety and come out confidently to the other side. I want to pass the tools I've learned along to you to help you trust yourself in relationships and also create magnetic, hot dynamics with your partner. I believe lots of mainstream relationship advice today can make us anxious and dissatisfied. So let's jump in and normalize challenges that modern relationships and real people go through while also giving you tools to trust yourself, drop the shame, and alchemize your messy, twisted relational truths into profound inner wisdom and aliveness. If you haven't yet, be sure to join my communities over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Anxious Love Coach. You can also request a 30-minute relationship anxiety assessment with me depending on availability, or ask me a question over on my website at www.anxiouslovecoach.com. I've also got a wonderful relationship anxiety meditation available to you as thanks for subscribing to my email list. Thanks for being here and enjoy this episode. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here again today. In this episode, I'm going to speak to maybe a different pocket of my audience, and that is to address those who are partnered with people who are struggling with relationship anxiety. Although the majority of the people that come to me say, I have relationship anxiety, how do I get rid of it? Occasionally, either through one of my Wisio requests, which is my kind of quick one-on-one private video response, Ask Natalie option, but once in a while in Wisio or in my Instagram DMs, even if I don't respond, I do see them. Once in a while, I get someone who says, oh my God, I think my partner has relationship anxiety. What do I do? Or I'll receive a message from someone who just got broken up with impulsively by someone who experienced relationship anxiety, and they're distraught because they're thinking, oh my God, I think they left me because they had relationship anxiety and I don't think they know. Do I need to tell them? So in this episode, I'm speaking to those who are distraught by the people they are in partnership with who happen to be struggling with relationship anxiety. This episode could also be considered to be for those who have relationship anxiety, but you want to hear what I would say to your partner to give you an idea of maybe what they need, as well as to kind of maybe see yourself from another perspective through their eyes. And also for those who do struggle with relationship anxiety, which I believe we all struggle with relationship anxiety to some degree, for you, the person that's struggling with relationship anxiety, to have permission to be and realize that it's not all on you. And actually that message is for both of you to realize that you have permission to be as you are, and to remember whether you're the person that kind of is identified with being the one with relationship anxiety and the person who's maybe identified with not being with relationship anxiety. Both of you have relationship anxiety. They just are kind of maybe manifesting in different ways. I want you both to realize that it's not all on you. So a little bit of a story time. I personally found my now husband, Preston, but back then, we've been together for almost 12 years, but back in the day when I was really struggling with relationship anxiety, my big hang-up was on my lack of attraction towards him. And I did have times when I found Preston to be most attractive. And ironically, it was when he was most selfish. It was when he was most focused on himself. Whenever I was struggling with relationship anxiety and he was just trying to rescue me from it, I would just feel guilty because I couldn't just make myself feel better for his sake. So I needed to know that he was cool within himself, regardless of how I felt about him or towards him that day. And I realized that's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you have attachment with someone. But beautifully, that's the level of permission he would have loved to have given himself, but his own shame wouldn't let him, because maybe this is the case for a lot of men or people, but he saw my misery in the relationship as a reflection of his own beliefs about his failure as a human, as a man, as a partner. And he took my 1 foot outness very personally as a confirmation of his own wounded hypothesis that he had about himself, which is that he was unworthy. And so he'd unconsciously decided to, quote unquote, prove himself through getting his partner's, mine, approval. Now, inevitably, this would lead to people pleasing on both of our ends, and neither of us were being authentic. So I would people please him, kind of trying to tell him that this is all on me, but at the same time nitpicking and criticizing and telling him that he needs to change. So on the one hand, I thought it was all his fault, that if he changed, I would be happy. But on another side, I thought it was all my fault and I'm the crazy one nitpicking. And I could not seem to acknowledge that we were both two flawed humans and that it was going to take two to tango. Neither of us were being authentic. I was constantly trying to save him, trying to fix myself so that he wouldn't feel anxious. He was constantly trying to fix me and kind of mindset my way out of my own anxiety, reassure me constantly so that I would feel secure, so that he would feel secure. Okay. So this would be a different approach. I was probably the more fearful avoidant partner. And I constantly had 1 foot out the door because I was struggling with the fact that I wasn't feeling turned on or attracted to my partner. But if you have a partner who is more anxiously attached, which I wasn't, this might be a little bit of a different approach. The short answer to that is if you're with a partner who's more anxiously attached, the short answer is that offering presence, sturdiness, reasonable amounts of reassurance, and holding loving boundaries would be really good. But that's maybe for another podcast. So this is probably, I speak from personal experience. So I'm going to be speaking to the partners of the people who probably tend to be a little bit more flighty and run away more easily. All right, so I have 2 main points to make in this podcast. Number 1, as the partner of the person with relationship anxiety, their relationship anxiety is not your fault. Number 2, this person is wounded and attempting to resolve their past issues through you. So, for example, if a person has daddy issues, they might try to resolve their daddy issues through you. They might try to get you to be the father they never got. If they have mommy issues, they might try to resolve their mommy issues through you, where they try to turn you into the mother they never got. And it's not like it's conscious or deliberate. A lot of the coping strategies that maybe allowed for survival back then may be surfacing now in an attempt to resolve the past pain. Unfortunately, because we don't realize that, because your person maybe doesn't realize that they're doing this, or maybe they do realize it, but they don't see any other way, or the alternative feels too painful of an attempt to try. Unfortunately, you're going to be at the brunt of that, and that totally sucks, and I hear you. So as the partner of the person with relationship anxiety, it can be very painful. It can be really isolating. You can feel maybe hot and cold from them. On some days, they feel really warm and loving if they're feeling sturdy. And on another day, if they got triggered, they might totally shut down towards you and you don't recognize them. And it can be absolutely agonizing. And I can tell you verbally that it's not your fault, and that there are things that you can do to regulate yourself while your partner is recovering from relationship anxiety or healing in their own separate journey from yours. I also just want to acknowledge that it's really freaking difficult, and you're not crazy if this is really frustrating for you, and your feelings are valid too. A lot of times the person with relationship anxiety seems to be the chaotic one, and they're having mood swings all the time, and they're hot and cold, and
Maybe you feel like there's no room for your own chaos. And so you end up having to pretend to be the sturdy one, even if there's so much going on inside of you too. But it feels like there's no room for your chaos. So I hear you, and I understand that you, the listener, or you, the kind of more sturdy identifying one, I see you, and there's room for you here too, even though they might be taking up most of the emotional bandwidth within the relationship. So again, the 2 points I have is, number one, it's not your fault. And two, this person is attempting to resolve past issues that have potentially nothing to do with you. You just have a small semblance of a reminder to their past, and they are attempting to resolve it through you. And I really want to remind you, don't take it personally, but I also understand that those are just words, and it doesn't mean they're going to land on a very deep level. There is work that is there for you to do as well, but it may look different than your partner's, and it's really going to require you to be very gentle with yourself and have some strong boundaries as to how much responsibility you take for this person. I do believe that when we enter partnership, this goes for both sides, you are also entering partnership with your partner's wounds. And it can be very beautiful to consciously caretake these wounds, not in a, I need you to rescue me, and if you don't, I'm going to punish you kind of way, but in a more reverent, soft, gentle, consensual way, which is, asking each other, how can I honor your inner child? What's something you didn't get as a child that would really benefit you to receive? How can I honor your wounds from the past? And when both people are cognizant of past wounding of their partners, they can really be allies for each other's healing. And I think that's very beautiful. Now, for those of you that are listening, I don't recommend forcing your partner to ask these questions so that you can feel loved. It's you maybe can send them this podcast and then let it go, whether they actually listen to it, because we can't control another person. Anyway, this podcast is mainly for the people that are in partnership with the relationship anxiety folks. So I'm going to give you some tools and mindset shifts and recommendations. If you are the partner that is with someone with relationship anxiety, or even if you got dumped by someone with relationship anxiety, I want you to consider focusing on you. It's really hard too, because even though they behave this way, you still love them. And so it's there's actually often a mirroring aspect of them in you. And when I say relationships are a mirror, that's what I mean. This person may have been acting totally crazy. Actually, I don't like that word, but totally mercurial, perhaps, hot and cold. And because of that, you felt like you had to be the sturdy one. But as soon as they left, you felt that chaos that was mirrored to you through that person. So find the part of you that is identical to your anxious partner or your avoidant partner and nurture that. So if your partner left because of relationship anxiety, and then all of a sudden now you have relationship anxiety thinking that you can control them, that you can control the situation, you in a way have turned into them. And so I would give you the same advice that I would give to the anxious partner, which is honor and nurture the little one inside of you that feels abandoned or angry, and honor that part of you. It's very common for the person with relationship anxiety that has a ton of doubts about you, for you to feel like you need to be the sturdy one and that there's no room for your own doubt because they are taking up all of it. That is not true. It's worth acknowledging that you too may have your own reservations about the relationship. And actually, it may be very beneficial, albeit painful, for your partner with relationship anxiety to hear that you too are feeling afraid or having doubts. When I say that relationships are a mirror, you may notice shadowy parts of you that are the same as your partner. So for instance, if you find that your anxious partner tends to be controlling, notice if you, in return, feel an urge to control their controlling behavior. We often think, oh, my partner is so controlling, and yet we don't see how we try to control them by trying, and sometimes it's very subtle and just trying to change their inner experience or trying to change how they feel, and it can be, we may think we're being reassuring, but in effect, we're actually kind of being controlling because we think if we can make them feel different, then we're going to feel different, as opposed to just taking care of ourselves so that we feel different regardless of how they feel. So if your partner comes and feels really, like I said, mercurial, or they feel very all over the place, you trying to rescue them from that feeling, although it may seem like it's loving and helpful, you trying to fix their feeling is, in a way, trying to control their inner experience. It's far more powerful to almost let them be while still being present with them. And notice if you feel an urge to control your partner's inner chaos by trying to coach them, by trying to reassure them, by trying to fix them in a way, notice notice your reasons for doing that. Is there any part of you feeling the same exact way that they're displaying? So in other words, maybe they're outwardly displaying chaos and you're outwardly displaying groundedness and peace, but inside you're also feeling chaos. So rather than try to control their chaos so that you don't feel chaos, notice your own chaos and go directly towards self-soothing. So name the parts of you that feel the exact way that your partner is feeling. It might feel tricky at first, but this happens to me even now, and I don't really consider myself as someone who struggles with anxiety around partnership anymore. But sometimes when my partner's anxious, I try to fix his anxiety rather than noticing my mirroring component, the part of me that also feels anxious, and acknowledging it. Sometimes just acknowledging it can be enough. Another thing that I would recommend to the partner of the person with relationship anxiety is to pay attention to any of your vices and unconscious spots or wherever you might be out of integrity. Sometimes our partner's relationship anxiety it's still on their paper, it's still their own work to do. And at the same time, sometimes they may be picking up on something that needs acknowledgement, however small it may be. They may be picking up on an area you're out of integrity. They may be picking up on a limitation of yours that you're unwilling to acknowledge as a limitation, such as some kind of unhealthy coping mechanism. Again, that's still their work to do, but a lot of times we focus on how they're not feeling the way we want them to feel, and we're not noticing our own behaviors that are out of integrity and out of alignment. So if you've got an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, the internet, social media, porn, lying, cheating, etc., smoking, marijuana, if you've got any substances that are currently have a hold on you and your partner has relationship anxiety, rather than trying to fix their relationship anxiety, get your eyes on your own paper and figure out what you're avoiding. So rather than seeing your partner as a problem, start seeing them as a mirror, mirroring your own unconsciousness back to you. So where can you get more honest about what you uniquely are struggling with? We often so much focus on how our partner's doing that we assume that our inner experience is not as important. And hopefully those of you that are struggling with relationship anxiety, for those of you that are listening, you'll notice that in this way, the advice that I have for your partner is the same as the advice I have for you. Focus on you. Use your partner as a tool to mirror back to you your own unconsciousness. People enter partnership thinking, my partner is going to be here to make me happy and they're going to take away my loneliness. And then they discover that no, you're in a relationship with a mirror and they're going to reveal to you where you are blind. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you're not going to like your partner. So if you make your mission not to fix your partner, not to change your partner, but to look at how you are blind to yourself and start focusing on loving what you see in the mirror that is your partner, I promise you your whole relationship will change no matter what side you are on. All right, another tip. I guess I should have made these numbered, but I didn't. I just have my little bullets. Become okay with them leaving. This might sound totally crazy, But a lot of times when we're feeling scared, either of us leaving or our partners leaving, personally, I think it's the same fear. It's the same physical sensations. It's the same emotion. It's just we have two different mental projections of what's going to create that pain that we're trying to prevent. And we need to almost mentally go there to that worst case scenario and feel the pain that would cause. And a lot of times it could even be connected to a past pain, a past abandonment, a past heartbreak. And maybe we haven't fully felt the ache of that, the breaking, the heartbreak. And so we have no room to feel more heartbreak. So we try to prevent it from happening, and we can't prevent it. Heartbreak is a certainty, even if your heartbreak happens when you die or when someone gets sick and dies. Heartbreak is a part of life. And we need to become comfortable with death, not in the literal sense, but in the metaphorical sense of things end, everything ends. And I say that, and I know that this might go in one ear and out the other. I mean this sentence that everything ends, not just in an intellectual sense. Yeah, I know, Natalie, everything ends. But have you ever really meditated on that concept? That everything ends? Really sit in silence and feel your cells dying and come to terms with your own mortality. And it will do something to you. And once you understand that death and endings are a part of life, you'll realize that your time in this relationship is finite. And we need to surrender to that. We need to be okay with the fact that this relationship will end. It's just a matter of how and when. And to remember ourselves as infinite souls or spirits, and that if they leave, it has nothing to do with us and it doesn't mean anything about us because we're infinite. So loving yourself enough to either let them go, or love yourself enough to stay, or love yourself enough to be left without it necessarily meaning anything about your worthiness, that is the work. You need to know that you're going to be okay if they were to leave. And for those of you that use your relationship as a crutch, as a way to stay in your comfort zone, as a way to not take risks, this is going to be very scary for you. If you got into a relationship and quote unquote let yourself go, and you stopped maintaining your self-respect, and you stopped eating well, and you stopped exercising, and you stopped maintaining a relationship with your friends, and you stopped maintaining your hobbies because you thought that a relationship was supposed to replace that for you, yeah, you have given this relationship way too much power over your sanity, over your aliveness, over your sense of self. And so, of course, you're going to be terrified of them leaving because you have stopped maintaining your individuality as a human being, as an individual. So you will need to remember who you are outside of partnership, and to remember that if they leave, you will be okay. And that comes with a lot of remembering who you are outside of partnership, detaching a little bit if you are too enmeshed, focusing on you and nurturing yourself with a lot of self-care. That is how it sounds strange, but if you are with someone who is 1 foot in, 1 foot out, give them some space and give room for them to leave, and try on the perspective of, I want you, but I don't need you. You're free to go. And this may free you to love them without clinging. And it may cause you some heartbreak in the short term to let them go mentally. Even if you remain with them, there is a heartbreak that happens when we detach from the codependency. That tends to happen for a lot of people who need to be with their partner in order to feel okay. Another thing is let go of control. So feel the feelings that surface when you let them be without trying to fix them. So just ask yourself, if you're with a partner who has relationship anxiety, have you felt like you kind of need to be a caretaker or a fixer of someone's emotional chaos? And if that's the case, even though you might be a stable, sturdy person, I'm curious if that's the total truth. Is this a pattern? Have you been an emotional caretaker of maybe your own caretakers in the past? Have you had to protect someone's emotions when you were a child? This might be playing out in your present, and it's very common, and we often don't realize the connection here. If you felt like you were responsible for your parents' feelings, for instance, you might also assume that you are responsible for your partner's feelings. And, there's some truth that the way we behave in partnership has an impact on how our partner feels, and we can acknowledge the impact without taking full ownership, because taking full ownership means you trying to fix it, and you can't. You can't fix someone's inner world. So if you are replaying patterns from your childhood where you feel like you have to emotionally caretake them, then they're not the only one with emotional chaos. You may have some inner work to do as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about my program, Both Feet In a bit. I'm planning to run it again at the beginning of next year. So I'm going to mention it at the end, but my next round of Both Feet In is going to be for all. Last time it was only for women, but this time it's going to be open for all. And it could actually be open to both people. So not just the person with relationship anxiety, but because I believe relationships are a mirror, if you are the partner with someone who has relationship anxiety, I am skeptical that you have absolutely no relationship anxiety in you. So it could be for both partners. All right. Don't try to get them to feel better so that you can feel secure. I mentioned this before, but even though you perceive yourself as the more stable, sturdy one, you may still inadvertently be trying to control their inner experience, and your partner's going to feel guilty, like they need to change so that you can feel better. Don't get too involved in their stuff. Give them space. And with that, give them more freedom, especially if they are kind of the more avoidant partner. It may feel very uncomfortable. And obviously this is a nuanced conversation. This is not going to apply to every single person, but to someone who is very frightened of getting tied down, at least on the surface, deep down they're afraid of abandonment. But if you give them more freedom and more space, both to, nurture their hobbies and have alone time and do their meditation practice and discover themselves, especially, my gosh, if they're in their 20s and they're figuring out who they are, or if you're both in your 20s, give them room to figure out who they are. You may be in a partnership, but they're still in their 20s figuring themselves out. Give them room to figure out who they are. That's the most loving thing you can do. So give them freedom to do things in the outer world, but there's also a freedom to offering someone permission to feel what they have in their inner world. So give them freedom to feel whatever they feel without them needing to be any different. And in the meantime, deepen your hobbies, your friendships, your spiritual practice. Have something going on for yourself. Ironically, if your partner tends to feel really guilty that they're quote unquote making you feel this way, you focusing on your self-care and having a community is going to unburden them from the responsibility of fixing themselves to AKA make you feel better. So love can be definitely about supporting your partner, but love can also be giving them space to figure themselves out. All right, another piece, and this is the hard one. It's going to be hard for those with relationship anxiety to hear, but I also just want to lay down this sentence. You are allowed to get overwhelmed and sick of it, and you are allowed to leave. It won't make you a bad person, and I know that's very upsetting, but it doesn't mean you have to, or that you should, or that you will, but just know that there's always an option to end it. The person with relationship anxiety is not so fragile that they can't handle heartbreak. They might make it seem like they are. God knows I made it seem that way because I initiated a breakup attempt maybe 5 years into my relationship with Preston. And surprisingly, he responded so, what's the word I'm thinking of? Gracefully, and said, okay, whatever you need, honey. And as soon as he made it okay for me to leave, I didn't want to leave anymore. That is how people with relationship anxiety often work. There's polarities living inside of them and they don't know how to reconcile them. So they believe that they're trapped, but as soon as they're free, they want to go back in again. And I think humans can be like this. I know of no one that doesn't have some variation of this polarity inside of them. There's always going to be tension between wanting to be attached and wanting to be free. It's not something to fix. It's just something you dance with. So, it's okay. You know, your partner may act like they are so fragile and can't live without you. But if you are getting mistreated by your partner with relationship anxiety, God knows if Preston left due to my poor behavior when I was struggling with relationship anxiety, I'm sure I would have been very angry and upset with him at the time for not sticking it out, for not hanging in there, you know, but the version of me now says he's entitled to be happy. And if that means leaving me, I'm not entitled to his partnership. It's a privilege. So if someone is repeatedly taking advantage of you and using you as an emotional punching bag, even if they are traumatized, it doesn't mean you have to take it. So I just want to put that out there. Leaving won't make you a bad person. And I also want to say the opposite perspective is if you have a deep faith in this person's ability to heal, you can still stay out of their inner process, but while still staying in the relationship. You can be present with them when they act all nitpicky. You can just not take the bait, but also stay present and curious and have faith in them and try to see the heart beneath their their crazy, their shadow behavior. So, and it can be beautiful. I will say that I am so grateful to be with my husband now because somehow he saw something in me, even when I was narcissistic, even when I was controlling, even when I hurt him, even when I sent him mixed messages, even when I was angry. He didn't always respond gracefully, but he didn't go anywhere. And that was very healing for me. And I was not owed that healing presence, but I sure did appreciate it. And I like to think that when I finally started to come out the other side and started to feel the light in my heart again and was able to feel his heart and connect, it just made our relationship story so much more beautiful and fulfilling for me. And I'm very grateful that he stuck around. I have the marriage of my dreams now. And that is in part because I think we saw something in each other, even when things were really toxic. So as you know, I like to live in the gray. I like to be nuanced. So I want to say you're allowed to get tired of it and leave, but you're also allowed to stick it out. And personally, I won't judge you either way, and I don't think anyone should judge you. So you can hang in there, you can stick it out, but just know it's not on you to do their work. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be frustrated. I maybe wouldn't direct your frustration and your impatience at your partner, but you can use your frustrations, your anger to help define your boundaries. You don't have to endlessly validate them and reassure them beyond your own emotional capacity. You can say something like, I hear you, and that's it. You don't have, I hear you is one of my favorite sentences to use in life where I don't have the energy to be a therapist for my friend or partner or family member. But at the same time, I don't want to say nothing and just sit there. So for me, using the words, I hear you, sometimes saying it 10 times in the same hour, just letting them vent and at the same time, not taking the bait can be very powerful. So don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. You don't need to dive into their childhood with them. I say dive into your own. So give them space to be, to process, and you can say no, or you can say, I'm at capacity, I hear you, and I'm really tired right now. I hear you, and I don't have the space to hold you at this moment. And if they're disappointed with you, let them be disappointed. Disappointment's a human emotion. You're allowed to disappoint your partner. In fact, it's very important that you honor yourself so that you can be fully authentic in the relationship, so that you can fully offer your heart. Because if you say yes to everything, directly or indirectly, including when your partner comes at you with a bunch of stuff and you just got off work and you're exhausted and you just can't, Even if you say yes by taking the bait, even though half of you says no, you're exhausted, you're still going to say no. You're going to say no with your body language, and your partner's going to feel it. So I say it's better to be honest and lovingly upfront, because then later, when you do have a full yes in you, they're going to be able to receive you so much better than your diluted people-pleasing yes, which is totally meaningless. Personally, I'd rather get a full no and a full yes than a wishy-washiness. So back when I struggled with relationship anxiety, part of it was my own stuff, but part of it was, I could feel my husband's or my then boyfriend's lack of integrity. He would not say no to me. And in a weird way, I would resent him for it because he wouldn't be fully with me. So when I say use your partner's relationship anxiety as a potential mirror for your own work, for your own lack of boundaries, having more self-respect and saying no to your partner may actually do more for your relationship than harm it. And it may sound scary because, I don't know, maybe they're not the only one with relational trauma. Maybe you got some too that makes you afraid to say no to your partner. That's your work. So I rarely believe that there's like one person in partnership who's broken and one person in the partnership who is totally fine. Takes two to tango. And there's a reason why you two were potentially drawn to each other. It's because of yin and yang. There might be a seed of them in you, and there might be a seed of you in them. But if not all of you is showing up, then you're not going to leave room for all of them to show up. So if you're the one that's used to caretaking and being the strong one, if you're tired of it, it might be time for you to reveal your exhaustion, your weakness, your frustration, your shadow with them, and give them room to step up for you. And it may create more balance in the relationship. So if you're never setting boundaries as the partner with relationship anxiety because you see them as the one that needs to be fixed, and so therefore you have to be perfect all the time, that's not true. It takes two. And my last point today is if your partner left due to their relationship anxiety, I am so sorry. That is so painful. I do get messages like this saying, oh my God, my partner just broke up with me and I just found you, Natalie, and I think they had relationship anxiety. And I think if they knew, maybe they would come back. I see this as control. You're trying to control their decisions. You think that you can convince them by showing them that they're wrong. And it's not loving, it's controlling. And I understand it's very painful. It's very painful just to allow the heartbreak and to trust your ex-partner's decision, whatever that was. But to really love them means to trust that they made a decision in their own best interests. And to really love them would mean to support them in their happiness, and that may be letting them go. Really loving someone does not mean trying to keep them against their will because it's what we want. That is not love. Love says, I want you to be happy even if it's not with me. And I hear that. I hear the pain in that. So if your partner left and you found me and you think that they had relationship anxiety, find the relationship anxiety that lives in you, your urge to control, your urge to fix it. You've got relationship anxiety too. It's just manifesting in a different way. So sending you lots and lots and lots of love. And this work can be brutally opening and softening and humbling. God knows it took me a long time to get to a place where I feel very, I don't want to say like perfectly at peace because I'm not at peace, but I do have a spaciousness inside of me that I'm able to access that gives me time to really feel into a situation. And a lot of us don't have that spaciousness, that delay that allows us to really witness our own thoughts, our sensations, our emotions, and make decisions from a place of response as opposed to blind reaction and avoidance of what's going on in our inner worlds. So that's it. I hope that you found that helpful. I wanted to make a couple announcements. The first thing is my next Patreon call is on November 5th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm very excited to say that we are close to 150 patrons, and I made a promise that when we get to 150, by the way, this is paid. I just found out that Patreon opened up an option to subscribe to my Patreon for free. you can totally do that, but unfortunately, there's no benefit to being a free patron. All my free content is here and on Instagram and on TikTok and in my email and my YouTube and in other places. So I don't offer additional free stuff on Patreon. For $5 to $9 a month, you can get all my exclusive content. I post terrible relationship advice every week, as well as my insights. We also have a chat feature on Patreon if you have the Patreon app. And this is really cool because I'm encouraging people to meet up with each other and practice some of the meditation tools that I'm teaching. And what else was I going to say? We have one monthly call every month for those who are ALC Supa fam. If you're spending $9 a month, you can jump on the call live with me, and I guide through a meditation and also host a live Q&A where you can unmute yourself and we can have a conversation. This next month, I am hopeful that Preston will jump on. As I'm recording this, we're at 143 patrons. So if we get to 150 paid patrons, my husband will jump on and you can ask him anything. You can ask him his perspective on being with me. He's got his own relational wisdom, and personally, I'm really excited. Preston is typically very private, so this is the spot to get the other side. You hear a lot from me, but this guy has his own viewpoints and he's different from me. So it may be cool to hear someone that's a little bit polarizingly different from me. Anyway, I hope you join. So if we do get to 150 by November 5th, my husband will jump on and he will answer questions as well. And if anything, you can just meet him. I'm very excited. I think it's really cool. Quite an honor, and I'm very grateful that he's coming on. So that's Patreon. The second thing, I think I mentioned this a couple podcasts ago, but I'm here in Irvine, California for the time being until January, after which we're going to fly to Colombia. But I've been longing for community, and so I've been hosting a donations-based breath movement class and hangout along with lunch and discussion after. Every other week near in Irvine, California. So our next one is going to be on October 29th at 10 a.m. So we're going to breathe, we're going to sit under the trees and do some movement and breath. Very accessible movement. It's not like my past yoga days where it's focused on alignment. Very much focused on intuitive movement that helps you remember that you know how to move and you don't need someone telling you how to move. It's very natural and normal. All the people that came to my last one said that it felt so good to just be in their body and remember how natural it is to move as a human and how to breathe. So that one's going to be on October 29th at 10 a.m. If you want to come, it's donations based. I suggest 20, but honestly, it's more or less is fine. Email me at natalie@anxiouslovecoach.com and I'll send you more details, and then you can RSVP if you want to come. And we'll do a little lunch and hangout after if you want that. Another thing, I'm currently closed to taking one-on-one clients for the long term, but I am receiving Wisios. So if you have any Wisio requests that you want to submit, you can. They're also offering a 10% off sale. You can type in the code FALL23, I believe. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry, but I think it should still be valid. And that's where you can ask me a question and I'll make you a video response just for you. The last thing, and I'm excited about this because I haven't mentioned it to anyone, not on Instagram, not on stories, nowhere, and not even on my previous podcast, but I am planning on running both feet in again, a much simplified version than the one that I did before. So it will be shorter, but it will be deeper on the core concepts. So rather than focusing, I had in my last program, Both Feet In, I had like 12 modules and a bunch of embodiment exercises, which were great, but it was really long in my opinion. So I am drilling it down to the core parts and going deep into the core pieces of Both Feet In. So I'm going to be hosting it again in 2024. It's going to be open to all rather than just women. For anyone who struggles with getting both feet in, it's going to be an embodiment meditation program. We'll be doing a lot of consciousness exercise and polarity work, not necessarily masculine, feminine polarity, but the tension, working with the tension of opposites internally and externally. these are the core principles of the work that I do with clients. So I'm going to be offering a special rate before Black Friday. So on Black Friday, I'm going to open up registration for Both Feet In. And there will be a special Black Friday rate. But as a podcast listener, if you want to get on the list to receive a special pre-Black Friday rate that I will only offer to podcast people, then email me at Natalie@AnxiousLoveCoach, and I will add you to the list of people that I will email when Both Feet In registration is open before Black Friday, and you will get a very special rate. So email me at Natalie@AnxiousLoveCoach.com, and I will send you the wait list for Both Feet In, which will start in probably January 2024. I haven't set a start date yet, but that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and got a lot out of it. As usual, thank you for being a listener. I appreciate you being a subscriber, and I hope you have a marvelous morning, day, afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, whenever you listen to this. Thanks again. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Anxious Love Coach today. If you loved this episode, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and maybe share it with someone that you believe might benefit from these perspectives. Please also subscribe to my email list at www.anxiouslovecoach.com, as I'm trying to reduce my reliance on social media. In exchange, you will receive my free relationship anxiety meditation and more supportive tools sent your way. If you would like to work with me, head on over to my website at, again, anxiouslovecoach.com to explore different tiers of coaching options and online programs. Thanks again for listening, and catch you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.